In the summer of 2026, the world watched as Bulgarian archaeologists and historians opened a sealed crypt in a quiet village near the mountains where the famous mystic Vanga had spent her final years. Cameras rolled and the international press gathered, but no one expected the small envelope that lay among her personal belongings to become the focus of global attention. The envelope was old, yellowed with time, sealed with wax, and addressed cryptically, "To the one who will lead from afar, yet touch the fates of nations." For decades, Vanga had been a figure of mystery and controversy. Blind from early childhood, she claimed to see the world in visions, flashes of color, impressions, and whispers of the future that came unbidden and often in fragments. Scientists, journalists, and mystics alike had debated the legitimacy of her predictions, but few could deny the chilling accuracy of certain events she foresaw: earthquakes, political upheavals, and the rise and fall of world leaders. Now in 2026, that legacy returned with a shock. The envelope contained a single, folded letter, written in Vanga's unmistakable hand. The message was short, but filled with urgency. "I see a man who will play with fire beyond his borders. A voice loud and commanding, hair that will be remembered, a presence that towers over the people. Beware, for the nations across the sea, their patience is thin, their anger growing. Stop before the storm begins, for it will not wait for repentance." For viewers in the United States, the cryptic phrasing immediately sparked speculation. Scholars, pundits, and social media erupted in debates. Was Vanga predicting someone in the White House? Was this a warning about international tension with nations like Russia and Venezuela? The parallels with contemporary politics were impossible to ignore. Inside the Discovery Hall, the lead historian, a fictional character, Dr. Elena Petrova, carefully lifted the letter for the cameras. Her voice trembled as she read aloud, "This is not fiction. This is a warning from a woman who saw what few could imagine." In the background, archival footage played, black and white clips of Vanga walking through her modest Bulgarian village, children around her, neighbors whispering about her uncanny foresight. It was as if the past was breathing directly into the present. Vanga's life had been a tapestry of mysticism and public fascination. Born in 1911 in Strumica, a town that would later be part of Bulgaria, she had survived a devastating storm as a child, losing her sight in the process. From that moment, she claimed visions came to her. By adulthood, she had become a local legend. People traveled hundreds of miles to consult with her, seeking guidance for lost loved ones, national crises, and personal decisions. This discovery, the envelope and letter, reframed her legacy for the modern world. American audiences, already enthralled by stories of prophecy, were drawn in not only by the mystery, but also by the potential geopolitical implications. The letter mentioned nations that had long histories of tension with the United States, hinting at a brewing storm. As social media platforms exploded with the news, historians stressed caution. Could a letter written decades ago truly predict the actions of a modern leader? Or was this simply the human desire to find meaning in coincidences? For many viewers, the line between skepticism and belief blurred, and the fascination with Vanga's warnings reached a fever pitch. The block ends on a chilling note. The letter was found, the words read aloud, and yet no one knew if the warning could still be heeded. Across continents, decisions were being made that would test the prophecy in ways few could imagine. The world had been given a mirror. The question was whether it would look into it before the storm arrived. Vanga's story is not just about predictions. It is about a life lived at the intersection of mystery, tragedy, and human curiosity. Born Vangelia Pandeva Dimitrova in 1911 in Strumica, a small town then part of the Ottoman Empire, she grew up in an era of immense political upheaval. The Balkans were a cauldron of changing borders and wars, and yet her early years were modest, defined by her family and community. Her grandmother, a figure both nurturing and cryptic, encouraged her to listen to the air between words, a lesson that would shape the way Vanga experienced the world. A turning point came at the age of 12 when a sudden storm caused an accident that left her blind. For most, blindness would have been a limitation, a closing of doors to a visual world. For Vanga, it became an opening. She described seeing impressions of events not yet occurred, flashes of color, bursts of emotion, and fragmented words. People around her noticed an uncanny ability to describe situations she could not have known. By the 1930s, whispers of her gifts spread beyond her village, drawing curious visitors and skeptics alike. In our fictionalized account, designed to appeal to modern audiences, Vanga was not only a seer, but also a strategist of perception. She understood media, human psychology, and the American fascination with prophecy long before it became mainstream. In the 1950s and 1960s, even as the Cold War loomed, she began receiving requests from diplomats, journalists, and academics. Stories circulate of Vanga describing nuclear crises, political assassinations, and social unrest. Sometimes vague, sometimes uncannily precise. Vanga's methodology was simple, yet profound. She never claimed certainty, she never named individuals directly, and she spoke in symbols that could be interpreted in multiple ways. For instance, a tower might mean a skyscraper, a political symbol, or even the concept of power itself. An angry nation across the sea could refer to any number of political conflicts, yet the impact was universal. The message felt urgent and relevant. Her rise to fame in Bulgaria mirrored what American audiences would recognize as media-driven celebrity prophecy. Television appearances, carefully staged interviews, and word-of-mouth testimonials built a persona that transcended her physical limitations. By the 1970s and 1980s, she had become a household name in Eastern Europe, but her reach eventually extended to global audiences. Books translated into multiple languages, magazine features, and documentaries cemented her reputation. In the context of American culture, Vanga's story resonates for several reasons. First, the United States has always been fascinated by prophecy, from Nostradamus to modern psychics, particularly when it intersects with politics. Second, the letter discovered in 2026 provides a bridge between the past and the present, offering a narrative that speaks directly to contemporary anxieties, global conflicts, leadership crises, and the unpredictability of geopolitics. Vanga's warnings were often delivered in seemingly simple phrases, yet they carried layers of meaning. A sentence like, "A man who will play with fire beyond his borders," could apply to military decisions, political brinkmanship, or personal ambition. For Americans watching the unfolding events of the 2020s, these messages were both fascinating and terrifying, a mix of historical curiosity and urgent speculation. The fictionalized letter to the future U.S. leader adds another dimension. In it, Vanga's words function as a warning, a moral counsel, and a prophecy simultaneously. The narrative emphasizes that this letter was not merely a relic, but a living document, capable of influencing the way audiences interpreted current events. Did it predict conflict? Did it predict diplomacy? Or did it simply challenge the conscience of those in power? Beyond politics, Vanga's life story touches on universal themes of resilience, adaptation, and perception. Blindness forced her to develop other senses. Isolation pushed her toward introspection. Skepticism from outsiders strengthened her resolve. These elements make her story compelling for American audiences who appreciate narratives of triumph against adversity. Block 2 concludes with the idea that Vanga's legacy was more than a series of predictions. It was a philosophy, a lens through which to view the world. She taught that the future is not fixed, that choices carry weight, and that awareness can be both a blessing and a burden. As the cameras filmed the opening of her crypt in 2026, viewers could not help but feel that they were witnessing the continuation of a conversation that had begun decades earlier. The conversation between humanity and the unknown. The year was 2026, and the world had changed in ways both expected and unimaginable. Technology had shrunk distances and amplified voices, yet the weight of history remained. In Bulgaria, a small, weathered crypt had become the focus of international attention. Archaeologists, historians, and journalists gathered to witness a moment that blurred the line between legend and reality: the opening of Vanga's tomb. Inside, carefully preserved under layers of wax and cloth, was a single envelope. The writing, delicate and deliberate, carried a name that had echoed across headlines: Donald J. Trump. The envelope contained a letter, a warning written decades before, a message from a seer who had predicted a storm that might engulf nations. The letter's contents were both cryptic and chilling. It warned that a man, loud, ambitious, and politically powerful, would push boundaries, provoke conflicts, and risk igniting unrest not only at home, but far across the seas. The letter mentioned regions of tension: Venezuela, Russia, hinting that actions taken without caution could have consequences beyond imagination. American media erupted. News channels replayed the footage of the crypt. Commentators debated the authenticity, and social media buzzed with speculation. Analysts dissected each word, connecting Vanga's symbols to current events. Tower, they noted, could symbolize power centers or skyscrapers. Fire beyond borders was interpreted as political maneuvering, international disputes, or military threats. Each reading sparked new conversations, some fearful, some skeptical, all captivated. Historians quickly contextualized Vanga's work. Her warnings had always been symbolic, intentionally open to interpretation. Yet here, in 2026, they resonated with uncanny precision. The world watched as a fictional narrative of prophecy intersected with reality. Trump's policies, global diplomacy, and Russia's assertive maneuvers suddenly took on the aura of a predestined challenge. In the United States, political operatives and citizens alike reacted with a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. How should a leader respond to a warning written by a woman who had lived decades before? Was it coincidence, clairvoyance, or an artifact of human pattern recognition? The letter did not answer these questions. It only demanded attention. Meanwhile, international reactions complicated the narrative. Venezuela's leadership, informed by leaks of the letter, expressed concern over potential interventions. Russia, represented by Vladimir Putin, was cast into the story as a counterweight, a nation not easily swayed, resistant to external pressures, and poised to act in defense of its interests. The tension between Trump and Putin, already visible in contemporary politics, now assumed the quality of a prophetic drama, a cautionary tale played out on a global stage. The fictionalized narrative emphasizes the psychological weight of the letter. For American audiences, it becomes a story not just of prophecy, but of responsibility. Vanga's warning is interpreted as a mirror reflecting leadership choices, testing the moral and strategic judgment of those in power. Every decision, every tweet, every negotiation is filtered through the lens of the seer's foresight. Vanga's symbolism also provided a personal dimension. Her references to the people of nations, Venezuela and Russia, reminded audiences that history is lived not only by leaders, but by citizens. Civil unrest, economic strain, and political dissatisfaction are not abstractions. They are the human consequences of decisions made at the highest levels. The letter, therefore, becomes more than prophecy. It becomes a story of accountability. As the world watched, American citizens debated the implications. Was Trump's ambition reckless, as Vanga suggested? Would diplomatic engagement with Russia succeed, or would conflict erupt? News pundits compared this to the hysteria and fascination Americans historically had with Nostradamus or Sylvia Browne, yet with a global twist, a prophecy tied to modern politics and modern geopolitics. The block closes with a reflection. Vanga's letter, once hidden in a crypt, now shaped public consciousness. It challenged leaders, captured imaginations, and forced a reconsideration of historical patterns and present choices. For American audiences, the message was clear. Destiny may be observed, but it is never uncontrollable. Choices matter, foresight matters, and sometimes warnings from the past are the loudest voices for the future. By mid-2026, the revelation of Vanga's letter had transcended the crypt in Bulgaria to become a global sensation. Social media, 24-hour news cycles, and streaming platforms amplified the story, turning a decades-old warning into a real-time narrative about power, responsibility, and the fragility of international relations. Americans found themselves not just spectators, but participants in the unfolding drama. Political analysts dissected every line of the letter. Phrases like, "He will play dangerously," and "the people will demand reckoning," were interpreted through contemporary events. Policies that stirred unrest in Venezuela, rhetoric that strained relationships with Russia, and decisions that ignited debates within the United States about foreign policy, ethics, and leadership. For many, the prophecy no longer seemed like folklore. It had become a lens through which the nation assessed its present and future. The figure of Donald Trump loomed large in the discourse. Citizens, pundits, and historians debated whether the letter was a literal warning or symbolic guidance. Did Vanga foresee a specific sequence of events, or did she articulate a pattern of human behavior that leaders often repeat? In either case, the American audience recognized the urgency. Unchecked ambition, geopolitical risk, and public perception were intertwined in ways that could shape the nation's trajectory. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin's presence in the narrative added a geopolitical counterweight. The letter hinted at discord, and real-world tensions seemed to mirror Vanga's warnings. Diplomatic maneuvers, energy agreements, military exercises, and election-year politics all became part of a tapestry interpreted as the fulfillment of a prophecy. The United States and Russia were no longer abstract entities in a textbook. They were characters in a story of fate, consequence, and moral responsibility. Public engagement with the prophecy was varied. Some Americans saw Vanga as a visionary, a voice speaking truth through time. Others dismissed her as a relic of superstition, noting that geopolitical crises are complex and unpredictable. Yet even skeptics could not ignore the letter's resonance with unfolding events. Debate shows, podcasts, and online forums erupted with discussions, simulations, and hypothetical scenarios, all tracing back to a single envelope hidden for decades. In fictionalized reenactments, media dramatizations depicted the letter as a guidepost. Trump, portrayed in conflict with the expectations of the letter, navigates tensions in Venezuela and Russia with both strategic acumen and public scrutiny. Every choice, whether domestic policy or international negotiation, is measured against the prophecy. The narrative emphasizes that foresight is not destiny, but a reminder of consequence. The American cultural lens is crucial in this story. Prophecy, myth, and historical precedent resonate strongly with audiences who value stories that combine spectacle with moral weight. Vanga's letter is reframed not as a mystical relic, but as a cautionary artifact, a mirror reflecting the responsibilities of power. It reminds Americans that decisions in the corridors of leadership ripple outward, affecting citizens, allies, and adversaries alike. By late 2026, the letter had inspired educational discussions, media retrospectives, and even artistic interpretations. Graphic novels, documentaries, and theater pieces dramatized the interactions between Trump, Putin, and the warnings of the seer. Vanga's symbolic language, towers, people's discontent, and warnings of danger became motifs illustrating the tension between ambition and accountability. The block closes with reflection. The prophecy's power lies not in prediction, but in prompting reflection. Americans, and indeed global citizens, are reminded that leadership carries consequences. Foresight demands attention, and warnings, even from the past, are not to be ignored. Vanga's voice, once buried, now echoes in boardrooms, homes, and public discourse. In the end, the story becomes a lesson. Prophecy is a mirror. History is a teacher. And the future is a canvas shaped by human choice.